Knowledge for Men, episode 23.
Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download today at kfmbook.com. There's over 100,000 titles to choose from for your smartphone, tablet, or computer. It's a perfect way to listen to your favorite books in the car, in the gym, or at home. Check out kfmbook.com to start learning in your downtime.
All right, guys, I'm here with Joshua Becker, just your average, typical American suburban family man. Yet, in 2008, Joshua and his family decided to pursue a minimalist lifestyle. Over 70% of their belongings were sold or given away. And this story has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CBS, and The Guardian, and just many other major U.S. publications. Joshua is also the author of Simplify, Living with Less, An Unexpected Key to Happiness, and Clutter-Free with Kids. He also blogs at becomingminimalist.com, which has exploded in recent years. All right, Joshua, let's do this.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into your favorite success quote and why.
Sure. There's a writer named Brennan Manning, and he wrote one time, he said, "In every encounter, we either give life or we drain it," which isn't a typical success quote, but I think it's a very helpful guiding principle just in our interactions with other people. But more than that, just how we choose to spend our days and how we choose to spend our time and our money. Are we giving life to other people, or are we draining it from other people or from ourselves?
Yeah, just focusing on giving value versus taking value is going to take all your relationships so much further.
Yeah, perfect.
And now let's jump into your story. I know I gave a little bit in the intro, but let's go into your journey and how you got started with what you do and becoming a minimalist.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned a little bit some of the backstory. I feel like I grew up a pretty typical suburban lifestyle. Grew up in South Dakota, but was living in Vermont for a number of years. I had this holiday weekend. It was Memorial Day weekend, and my son was 5, and it was a 3-day weekend. It was going to be gorgeous up in Vermont, up in the spring, and we woke up and we decided to do what most typical American families do. We were going to clean the house. Like we were in the midst of spring cleaning, and I volunteered to do the garage. Seemed better than cleaning the toilet. So I offered to do the garage. It was going to be a nice day. Figured my 5-year-old son would be helpful in the project. Get in the garage, and everything's just if you've ever been in winter in Vermont, plenty of snow and mud. So we're like, let's take everything out of the garage and let's clean it up. Let's organize it, hose it down, put everything back in a nice, orderly fashion. I have my son grab a box of his toys, and as he's pulling them out into the driveway, he finds his baseball bat and his baseball, which he hasn't had all winter long, and so he's done. Like he pulled out one box of toys, and he was bailing to go play, asked me if I could play catch. I'm like, I can't play catch. I gotta take care of the garage. This is what I do. So I'm cleaning the garage, as these projects tend to do. Hours are passing, and it's just, one thing leads to another, which leads to another, and my frustration's growing. My son's popping in every 20 minutes asking me to play with him. I'm like, I can't. I gotta finish this. My 80-year-old neighbor her name is Joan. It's funny because I hope my wife is trimming the hedges when she's 80 years old, but she's out there doing her yard work, and she notices this whole thing taking place, and she makes a funny comment. She goes, "Oh, the joys of home ownership." I said, "Yeah, well, you know what they say, the more stuff you own, the more your stuff owns you," which I'd read countless times, but I don't think I ever quite figured out, what it actually meant. And then she responds with this incredibly life-changing sentence. She says, "Well, that's why my daughter is a minimalist. She keeps telling me I don't need to own all this stuff." And it was like the first time anybody had ever told me that I didn't have to own everything in the world. Like, it was the first time anyone had ever given me permission to purposefully own less stuff. And I looked at the pile of things in my driveway, and I realized these things weren't adding any joy into my life. They certainly weren't adding any lasting joy into my life. But even worse than that, they were distracting me from the very thing that did bring joy and purpose and meaning and fulfillment into my life. All morning long, they had been distracting me from my son, which is really the source of my pride and source of my joy. And so it was just this juxtaposition of the two, this light bulb moment that, man, all the stuff that I own is actually distracting me from true life as opposed to adding it to me. So that was the start for us. And we started writing about it, kind of journal, just an online journal to talk about, hey, we're going through this room, we're getting rid of this, we're getting rid of that. Here's some of the thought process, some things that we're learning as we're going through it. And lo and behold, people started reading the website, and people started, writing back, kind notes of, hey man, you've really inspired me to go through my closet. You've inspired us to do this. We own too much stuff as well. And the more we do it, the more we begin to realize that this wasn't just a me issue. This wasn't just a Joshua issue, but this is a society issue. And that we're leaving a lot of joy on the table because we're chasing all the wrong things with our time and with our energy and money.
And Joshua, you're putting millions of people to work cleaning out their garages and cleaning out their closets. you're filling up Salvation Army stores around the world.
Yeah, hopefully it's, the average American home is twice as big as it was 40 years ago, and still 10% of Americans own storage someplace off-site. And I don't know how many people complain about their house being too small. There's not enough closets, not enough cupboards, not enough drawers. And meanwhile, we're just filled to the gills with stuff. And we don't even realize how much it's distracting from what we really want to be doing. Because, Andrew, I don't think anyone, when you sit across from a table and you say, what do you really most want to accomplish in life? I don't think anyone says, really, I just want a really big house and lots of money in the bank account. Some people do on the surface, but when you pry deeper, like, really, that's what you most want in life? Most people are desiring, they want to have significance, and they want to make a difference, and they want to be good fathers and good husbands, and they want their life to stand for something. And we've just bought into this mass marketing that society has given to us for too long, and it's time to rethink some of that.
Yes, and it brings up that really popular TED Talk by Nigel Marsh, where he says something like, there are thousands of people out there leading lives of quiet desperation, where they work long, hard hours at jobs they hate to enable them to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's so true, because we see 5,000 advertisements a day. That's what the statistics say. 5,000 advertisements a day. And it's probably more. It's, number of years old, that statistic. And they all tell us the same message, right? They all tell us that we'll be happier if they buy whatever they're selling. And we can't help but begin to believe it. And we just subtly begin to believe that lie. We're just told it so many times. And until someone comes along and questions that, until someone comes along and calls us to rethink those things, until my 80-year-old neighbor comes up to me and says, maybe you don't have to own all that stuff. And it's like, I like to say it's just an invitation to believe what our heart has been telling us all along is true.
And can you give us some examples of items or stuff, the things that you've gotten rid of and that you can recommend to others that they can get rid of and do without? I see behind you a TV, some nice stuff there. Yeah, you got it. There's a few things I can't get my wife to part with, but it's interesting. So people always ask, because we'll talk about this and have a number of conversations with people, and oftentimes people always jump to the hardest thing, right? Like, oh, I could never part with this. I could never get rid of my so-and-so. And that's kind of a natural reaction. And I counter it and I say, well, we don't have to start with the hardest things
to get rid of. There's a lot of stuff in your house that you don't need in most people's houses. There's a bunch of clothes in your closet that you don't wear. There's things in your garage that you don't need. And there's things in your kitchen that you don't use anymore. Like, begin getting rid of these things and donate them, whatever you need to do. And as you do, you kind of find that this frees up your attention. You're spending less time cleaning. It costs less money. You've got less stress by having clear counters around you. And as you do this, then you take the next step and you push a little bit deeper and you push a little bit further. And you're like, maybe I could go with just this certain number of clothes, or maybe I could, get rid of this and that. And you push a little deeper, and for us it was every room. I mean, we went through every room and we found things in every room to get rid of. But less is different than none, right? Like we still have plates and we still have glasses and we still have people over for dinner. So there's 8 plates and there's 8 glasses. We still have seating in our living room. We have a couple different groups that meet over here over the course of a week, and so there's still places for them to sit. It's the matter of, what is it that I need to accomplish, and then what do I need to get there, and then the family aspect's a little bit different. I always say, if I want to get rid of 80% of our stuff, my wife wanted to get rid of 60%, and so first 60% was pretty easy, and then we kind of reached this mid-range of, well, I wouldn't keep it. If it was just me, I wouldn't have it, but it's important to you and important to the kids. So let's find this balance and not worry about it quite so much.
And from doing this, can you share with the audience some of the benefits that you and your family have experienced since living this minimalist lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. I mentioned a few of them. It's interesting because when you ask somebody, like, how would your life improve if you own less stuff? Usually they can start rattling off 5 or 6, 7 different things right off the top of their head. Well, it'd mean less cleaning. It would mean I could get out of debt. It would be better for the environment. It would mean less stress. Everything that we see pulls at our attention just a little bit. And you can picture that if you work in a clean, organized office where there's not a lot of distractions around. You can focus on the work, as opposed to a cluttered office where you're looking around the room and you're noticing, oh, I got that meeting at 3:00. I got that file of things I haven't finished. They just pull at our attention. We've discovered, for me, it's given opportunity to pursue new work, to write full time and to do this as a career. I don't make as much money as I did before, but I don't need as much money because I'm not buying as much stuff, and so I'm able to do work that I love and work that I believe in, as opposed to just doing something for the paycheck. And beyond that, there's some very attractive heart issues: gratitude, generosity, contentment, those types of things that are very attractive to people. Until we remove this desire, possessions, as we remove that desire, we find those new opportunities begin to spring up in our hearts.
So you're suggesting that once we get rid of these items, these possessions that kind of own us, we can really have the time and the freedom to really focus on what matters in our lives.
Yeah, and it brings, for me, and I think for a lot of other people, it brings great intentionality into life. I was early on in the process and just writing about some things that I was thinking and feeling as we were removing possessions. And I wrote one time, I said, I feel like I'm being forced to define what's most important to me, like I've never had to define before. And someone, it was a comment actually, that kind of opened my eyes to it, and they said, minimalism always brings about intentionality. We can't decide which possessions we need to keep until we determine what we most want to accomplish in our lives. And it was very true, and it forced me to determine some of those things about what do I want to stand for, and what do I think I'm here to do, and what gifts do I have to offer people, and what do I need to keep in order to do that, and what do I have to get rid of that's just distracting me from it. And it was in May, of course, that we started this journey. My birthday's in December, and so 6 months later, my wife was asking me what I want for my birthday. I'm like, well, I don't want shoes. I don't want a new watch. A new gym had opened up down the street, and I said, how about a membership to the gym? That would be good. It wouldn't be clutter. I have more time available now that I'm not shopping as much and fixing stuff all the time. So she got me a membership to the gym, and I began working out. And shortly thereafter, it's like, well, I don't want to go have a bag of chips and soda anymore. I don't need French fries anymore. I just spent all day working out. So I began eating healthier and getting in better physical shape. And it's just funny how that led to greater intentionality in all aspects of life.
Joshua, I really respect how you quit your job. You're now writing books and blogging full time and building a community, yet you're making less money. But because you have the minimalist lifestyle, it's allowed you to do what you truly want to do. And I think more people should follow the minimalist lifestyle, or at least elements of it. For example, not leasing a car or, a luxury apartment, which is going to just entrap you into keeping a job you may not really like. And I think at the end of the day, if you're doing what matters to you, if you're doing something, I know it's cliche sounding, but if you're passionate about what you're waking up and doing, that nice car or, living in that nice place that you can't really afford, it's not going to matter, because what matters is what you do with your time. It's finite. And while you're here, you want to get all that out, all your best work out.
Yeah, right. We get stuck in the high mortgages and the car payments and the consumer debt or the student loans, that we studied for the job that we don't even love anymore. And there's just a better way to do it when we start thinking it through a little bit. So,
indeed. And I think for an individual to become a minimalist or to take on elements of this lifestyle, I think it wouldn't be that challenging. They just make their own decision. But for people who have, like yourself, a family or a significant other, that's got to be challenging. So how did your family and others react to this new lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, a pretty common question. My wife has been great. She was in cleaning the house at the same time. I went running in and I said, Kim, you'll never guess what Joan just said. She said, we don't have to own all this stuff. She's like, that sounds pretty good right about now. So she was very much into it. And like I said, probably into it more than she was. So there's just a balance of finding when am I dealing with my own personal things, my side of the closet, and when am I beginning to deal with the shared possessions, the pots and the pans and the dishes and the appliances, right? Like these are all things that we share as a family. And then the next step, and when am I getting into something that is someone else's? So when am I crossing the line to deal with my wife's side of the closet or my kids' things, and finding that raising kids to be minimalist is just like raising them to do anything else. You model it as best you can. You look for teachable moments. You explain why you do it. You set boundaries and try to send them down the right path. And ultimately, you let them make their own decisions, and you empower them to do it. I have a son and a daughter, and my son, if he's got a bicycle and a soccer ball, he's pretty content. And I have a daughter who likes dolls and clothes and and art supplies, and so she collects more than I do. And I say, you know what, I didn't figure this out till I was 33 years old, so I'm not sure I should assume my 7-year-old daughter is going to understand everything that took me 30 years to figure out.
And Joshua, do you find that becoming a minimalist has improved your relationships now that it seems like you have more time and you're really focused more on the people around you and what you're doing in your life? How has this affected your relationships?
Yeah, and it comes and goes. Minimalism allows you to do more of what it is that you're going to do. So when I'm focused on relationships, which is the goal, and I worked at I was working at church before doing this, and so relationships were always very, very important to me, and so hoping to foster greater ones. But sometimes you're like, I just don't want to do anything. Opportunity for rest to come in, and some people, they embrace minimalism because they love to travel and they want to travel more. So they maybe make new relationships with people when they're out traveling, but this is what their goal is. And so I think that we begin to fill the new space with whatever it is that we want to fill it with. And for us, hopefully it was relationships and a closer family and getting to know the neighbors better and all those types of things.
Yeah. I feel like the minimalist lifestyle has given you and it can give others the more time and the ability to really focus on the things that they care about, the things that they're passionate about, or the things that really are going to make them happy and give them like a fulfilling life and help people really go after the things that they want, because they're not working for things that necessarily are social constructs like luxury items and maybe different clothes and brands, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's about intentionally taking our life back from the lies that we bought into, and not just intentionally taking it back, but then creating the space to be able to take it back and removing the distractions that were keeping us from fulfilling it in the very first place. Absolutely, it's really unbelievable, and I don't know if people can ever fully appreciate it until they go down that road. I don't think that we have any idea how much of our emotional energy is being put into the things that we own and the possessions that we're chasing until we remove them and we're just freed up to chase other things, better things.
So being a minimalist is really about freedom. It's about having the freedom to do the things that you want to do. It's about having that extra time and having that extra money, and not being shackled down by things, literally things around you that force you to spend money, take care of them, and just put you in this endless cycle where you're taking care of things other than yourself. And so it really kind of makes you think about what is really important in your life. Well, with that said, Joshua, it's time to enter the knowledge round.
For you, the listeners of the Knowledge for Men podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their awesome service. And you know what? Something I've noticed after interviewing hundreds of successful people is that they all read a ton of books. If you want to be successful, you've got to educate yourself. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book, so I personally recommend listening to audiobooks in your car, in the gym, or on the go. You can pick up for free any one of my favorite best-selling books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins, Mastery by Robert Greene, Choose Yourself by James Altucher, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, or any other audiobook you want. Audible has over 100,000 titles to choose from. To download your free audiobook today, go to kfmbook.com. Again, that's kfmbook.com for your free audiobook today. Start learning, growing, and becoming the man you want to become now. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
Joshua, how would you explain becoming a minimalist to a newcomer?
Own less, live more. That's the first thing I say. Own less, live more. The things that we own are owning us, and find great freedom, great space, a great opportunity in intentionally deciding to own less, right? I like to say it this way: there's more joy in owning less than can ever be found in pursuing more.
And what was holding you back from becoming a minimalist?
I would say number one, I had just never been introduced to the lifestyle. I had never been introduced to the idea of people purposefully living with less. But then on the flip side, and probably the bigger one for me, was that no one had ever explained to me the reasons for owning less. I had lived in a world where materialism was bad. It was killing the environment and it was putting us all into debt. And so materialism was bad, but no one ever made the case for me as to why minimalism was actually a better way to live. And yet the benefits are countless. I list over 20 on the website, and you read through them, you're like, oh yeah, my life would improve in that way. And so as we begin making the case as to why minimalism is better, then the materialism that we used to buy into begins to fade away.
Well said. And Joshua, what's the best advice you've ever received from a mentor?
Best advice I ever received, I was thinking about going into a career one time, and I had a conversation with a guy, and I said, I just don't know if I can do it. I don't know if it's something that I'd even be able to pull off. And he said, sometimes open doors look like grocery store doors. And he said, we don't really know they're open until we begin taking steps towards them. And as we do, we begin to see them opening up, and we begin to see that we have had what we need all along in order to get there, and that the world will align for it to happen. And so, there's a lot of people that don't chase success. They don't chase meaning because they don't think they can get there. They don't think they deserve it. They don't think they have the gifts or the talent. And I think there's a sense of just start walking towards it. And as you do, I think you'll find that door open up. So that's been very, very encouraging for me.
Joshua, what are your 3 most influential books and why?
Boy, that's a tough question. There's a lot of. How about this? I'll give you the first 3 that popped into my head. Whether the most influential, I'm not sure, but the first 3 that popped into my head, I always mention The Catcher in the Rye. It was my favorite book in high school. I think because it was the paper that I was most proud of in English class was written on The Catcher in the Rye. So I've always kind of enjoyed that book. I read a book last year that I can't get out of my head called More or Less: Choosing a Lifestyle of Excessive Generosity. Jeff Schinneberger is the guy's name who wrote it, and I just can't get it out of my head. I think the principles and the practical applications that he offers just pop into my head at the most random moments. I would say that one. I'd have to mention the Bible has always been an important book for me, and whether you read it for religious purposes or just a blueprint for life, I think that you find just great, just the idea of treating others the way you would want to be treated and finding as the mark of your life. It's been very helpful in my minimalist journey to begin thinking through, okay, if life isn't about owning material possessions, then what is life about instead? And that's been pretty influential for me.
All right. And Joshua, what's one action one person can take right now that would get them closer to becoming or living the minimalist lifestyle?
One action is to go clear out one thing, one area in your home today, and I would say choose a livable area. So go to your office and just clear out of your office anything you don't need. For us, we started in our cars. My cars were out of the garage. So as we pulled them in, I just took everything out of my car. I'm like, there's maps and there's sunglasses and there's CDs and there's Happy Meal toys. Like, I don't need any of these things in my car. And I took them out, and like the next morning when I got in my car, I'm like, this feels so much better. And so clear off your desk, clear off your kitchen counters, clear the things in your car, pull everything out of your bathroom that you don't use, and intentionally observe how it makes you feel and how less distracting it is, and then multiply that around the rest of your life, and you'll love it.
All right, Joshua, putting us all to work here. In scenario for you, imagine you woke up and you were 22, you just graduated college. What would you do? Would you do anything differently?
Heavens, I just graduated college. I would have started writing a lot sooner if I could go back and do it all over again. As I mentioned, I started the blog just as a journal, and I wasn't a writer by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't even know how to start writing other than to put down thoughts on a paper. And as I did, I grew in that area, and I grew in that by practicing, and I found that I had a message that people wanted to hear, began finding influence with that message. And if I could have started it 10, 12 years ago, I'd be that much better of a writer. I'd have found that much more influence, would have, hopefully inspired that many more people along the way. That's the first thing I'd do, man. I'd get online and start writing and start finding a voice and a message.
That's good. I would encourage anyone to do something like that. If you have something to say, if you have a message, if you have a cause, to go out and start writing. Yeah, I like that. Find your voice, find your message. And as we're coming to a close now, Joshua, deep question. What is your philosophy on life?
I don't know if I read this quote or if I wrote it. I think I wrote it one time when I was writing it. It was funny. You go back and look at some of the things you wrote years ago, and Like, wow, that's pretty good stuff I was writing back then. I wrote one time. I wrote, the size of your universe shrinks considerably when you place yourself at the center. And my philosophy of life has always been that my life is not about me. My life is not just for my own benefit, but my life needs to be for the benefit of others, the people that I'm in close relationship with, the people around the world that have been denied many of the blessings that I have, even if it's clean water and clean education, but when we start to think that, hey, I'm not the center of this, but there's other people around me and they need my help. And even going back to the original quote, that in every interaction, I'm hopefully giving life to other people and hopefully giving hope to them. And that's probably my philosophy of life, that the life is best lived not for myself, but life is best lived for others.
And as we'll be wrapping up now, do you have any last parting piece of guidance for the thousands of listeners today?
Yeah, stop owning so much stuff. There's a way better to do it, a way better way to do it. And so I would steer people towards minimalism. I would, maybe the first step is go online and just start searching around. What is a minimalist lifestyle? You're going to find a ton of people writing about it. Every single one of them explaining why this has been better for them, and I think that it'll helpful piece of information.
All right, and Joshua, what's exciting you today? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Sure, number of things that I'm working on. We're doing depending on when this goes live, we're doing a simple year, 2014. I got together with 6 or 7 fellow bloggers. And over the year of 2014, we're offering a course for people to go through. Each month focuses on a different subject. I start in January talking about possessions, and we talk about food, we talk about travel, we talk about work, and just simplifying all those different aspects of our lives. And we're taking signups through the middle of January, and then focusing all year long some very exclusive content and some opportunity to interact with each of the bloggers over the course of the month. And simpleyear.co is where they can find the information. But really excited about it. I got a book that's just in proposal format for 2014, but I'm really excited about writing it. It's kind of a natural next step from minimalism and simplicity, and then the questions that it caused me to begin asking about money and just the role of money in our lives, and if we can begin thinking differently about money and what it is and what it can mean. So it's kind of a longer project for 2014. I'm excited to get working on as well.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. The world needs that book. The world needs those courses. I really admire the work that you do. And Joshua, go ahead and give yourself a plug so all the listeners can get in contact with you.
Sure. I think becomingminimalist.com is best. From becomingminimalist.com, you can find all the archives. You can find plenty of writing on the site. Also, you can find links to Twitter and Facebook, and we're pretty active on both. So it's a great way to get information. I have a newsletter for people who not just are into simple living, but want to spread the message and be agents of change for that. So you sign up for the newsletter and get some of that information as well.
All right, Joshua, thank you so much for being on the show. You've given us such great wisdom today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you allowing this message to go forward, and I love any avenue to spread it and inspire others. So thanks, man.
All right, and that's going to wrap up episode 23 with Joshua Becker, Becoming Minimalist. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to check out knowledgeformen.com and specifically check out the Knowledge for Men Toolkit. It's 4 little ebooks on dating advice, relationship advice, how to get financial freedom advice, find your passion, and optimal performance, which is a man's guide to a healthy life. And there's also some video lessons from a dating expert breaking down exactly what it is that you need to do to become more successful with women. All right, well, it's a free toolkit. It's a ton of value. Could have been priced it at $149 or so, but you can get it for free if you go to knowledgeformen.com and then check for free tools, and you're on your way to crush in 2014. All right, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.